That's the voice of the Laval Rocket, Shaun Campbell, on TSN 690 weekdays from 10 to 2 with Mitch Gallo. It's Campbell v. Gallo. We both agree that the summer is going to be massive for Ken Hughes.
Yep.
I believe it's going to be a fatal flaw if they don't address the 2C. And, we're also of the same mind. No reclamations, no maybes. You're looking for as close to certainty as you can possibly get to fill that 2C void. In order to get, you got to give. And Ken Hughes and Jeff Gordon have been very consistent when they tell us that they have a plan, they are traveling down that road, and they have no idea, no desire to veer off the path for a shortcut, which I'm on board with. But here we are, looking at a Montreal Canadiens team, year 3, year 4, getting better. I believe they should make the playoffs next year. How attractive are some of these prospects that you watch on the regular with Laval? We've spoken about Logan Mailloux a lot. We talk about David Reinbacher. I think David Reinbacher, to me, right now is an untouchable. When we talk about Oliver Kapanen, when the Swedish Hockey League season ends, it's going to come back from North America, according to reports, and maybe see him in Laval before you see him back with the Montreal Canadiens. I mean, can we talk about some of these players perhaps in play this summer for a talented Laval Rocket group? Is that what Ken Hughes is going to really have to aggressively look at in order to fill that 2C void?
Yeah, I think someone like Logan Mailloux may not make it to training camp if they want to go get a second center.
Yeah.
I don't think that they want to touch Reinbacher, but that's someone that people will be calling on. And they'll call for Demidov, but Ken Hughes is going to hang the phone
Correct.
up. But that
Change the phone
means
number.
Kapanen is a player that you really like, that is developed and ready to knock on the door in the NHL, and I think he's very close to the NHL. We saw a glimpse of that at the beginning of the season. Can't wait to see him at the end of the season. I think it's important for Kapanen to maybe get a little NHL time, and then scouts look at, who's this guy? Oh, I like him. And then you can go out and package him part of a 2C with one of your first-round picks if you're really going after somebody that has contract and term. You're going to have to give up. You're going to have to give up someone you like. To get something, you have to give something. You have to give something that is so you're right. I think Kapanen is a guy that if you are doing your math and you see what's happening with Owen Beck and you're like, okay, no, Owen Beck's going to fit in, where maybe Dvorak was, and we kind of like this. He's part of our group right now, and we'll see how he develops over the next few days. For other organizations, I think the Kapanen, the Becks, the Maillouxs are more enticing. Yes. I don't know what happens here with Cayden Primeau. I'm not sure what's happening. Josh Waugh, is he enticing to other organizations, or is he just enticing within this organization?
Right. And it's also, the draft stock, don't you think teams look at, a guy who was drafted in the second round versus someone drafted in the 5th round? They look at them with a different set of eyes, right?
The other guy that and I have mentioned is Michael Hage.
Yes.
Right? What's going to happen with him?
Yep.
What's that next step? Is he a piece that the Canadiens have to depart with? As many of nice, interesting pieces. You have to realize your value, once you get drafted, kind of disappears after that. You get drafted, but then if you're not in the NHL right away, and it takes you a year to get in the NHL, then it's like, oh, you're a first-round pick that hasn't made the NHL yet? Well, then now your value comes down. So someone who like Hage, who was just drafted, when his stock is this high, is maybe someone that you can entice someone else if you have to go get that 2C. So I don't, I see one of these prized possessions that the Canadiens scouts and drafting has done that a lot of people like, maybe in play if Ken Hughes goes after that 2C.
You talk about the goaltending position earlier there, and it's fascinating. It's so hard. I find so challenging to evaluate. Why is Cayden Primeau so good in Laval? Why is he run up over 13 wins? Jakub Dobeš, who left Ohio State, went to the AHL, comes to the NHL and shuts out the freaking Florida Panthers in his NHL debut. And he got caught up in this whirlwind, and the fans were loving him, and it was a great time after Christmas for Jakub Dobeš, and the story of his dad. He hasn't seen his dad in forever. He gets to hug him for a year and a half. You know what I mean? Everything about it was so great, so layered too, right? But when you watch Cayden Primeau, clearly a much better goaltender with Laval versus what you saw before he was demoted this year. How appealing is the Canadiens' depth goaltending market through Laval? I mean, Connor Hughes is a veteran guy, played pro in Europe.
Mm-hmm.
Dobesh, Primeau, Dobesh more skewed to the future than Primeau is, but what's your guess on how the team, the organization evaluates Cayden Primeau in your best logical, educated guess?
I guess your long term, it depends what's happening with Fowler, another prospect that people are very,
Yes.
very excited about with the
Years, though,
Canadiens.
years away, right?
Yes,
Like
yes, yes.
two,
I'm a
three
years
years
away
away?
guy too. But
Yeah,
if he
yeah,
goes pro, then you want to groom him in the AHL for a couple of years, and then there's a
yeah.
spot. Would you want a veteran like Hughes, who's nearing 30 behind him? You have your starter, your backup. Dobesh is your backup with Montembeault for another. Like you could have that, and that's the plan without Cayden Primeau.
Right.
Here's the thing with Cayden Primeau. I think it's all about confidence. Goaltending is all about confidence. A hot goaltender can ride the wave for so long. Cayden Primeau is someone that when he has confidence, you see all the
Mm,
prospects going, this guy, he's an NHLer, oh for sure. But when he has
right.
no confidence, you're like, how can he play anywhere but the AHL? He's clearly professional goaltending talent. There's no doubt about that. It's at what level? And there's the
Mhm.
two reasons why you see where he didn't have confidence and when he did. He had confidence when he was the guy in Laval and they went on a playoff run. And there was no doubt about it. He was feeling it. They said, "You're the guy. We're going to ride you. No problem." When the Canadians had three goalies, it was tough for him to show himself off. And then they traded Jake Allen. One of the best versions of Cayden Primeau we saw was after the Allen trade. And down the stretch, people were talking, well, Primeau might battle Montembeault for the start of the season.
Mhm.
Then he comes back. He's the backup to Montembeault. Montembeault wins that battle. And I think he already won that battle between you and I.
Yep.
And then one start doesn't go his way. And then there was probably a start that's scheduled that Marty St. Louis took away and gave it to Montembeault. And Montembeault played about 8 games in a row or 9. Was it 10 games in a row at one point?
Yes, it was. Yes.
Because they couldn't trust. Oh, my coach doesn't trust me. Shoulders go
Mhm.
down. And then
Yep.
he finally gets the opportunity and nothing happens. So to me, Cayden Primeau is all about confidence. And when the rug's pulled out from under him, or he's a third goalie, or he's a backup that a coach doesn't trust, I think it affects his game. And that's tough at the NHL level. There's a mental battle that a backup goalie has to face. And his whole life he's been a starter. And now he's coming to grips as I'm like starter in college, starter in Laval. Now he has to come to grips as a backup. Some goalies mentally aren't there prepared to be a backup. And I think that's kind of where Cayden Primeau is. He's great as a starter. He doesn't have the mental fortitude as a backup yet ingrained him and
Right.
it grows. It takes time. His
He's
next
not confident
opportunity,
enough.
yeah, but
Yeah.
his next opportunity with the Canadians, he might walk in and says, "I'm the backup. I got to be ready," and then he'll be who he is. But he's still young. Let's not. He's 24, 25 as a young goaltender. It's hard to come to grips that I'm going to be a backup. I'm going to be a starter. He's just never had to go through that. So I think that's where it is with him. That's all it is.
I find it fascinating, and I'm so glad you kind of formed your thought there, because I wanted to ask you about the tricky balance of Canadians don't make the playoffs. Laval has higher hopes of just making the playoffs.
Yep.
They're in the playoffs, right? Like they're hoping deep run, minimum 2 rounds won here. Um, you just finished spelling it out. Confidence, young guy, proven himself. Back to the AHL where he gets demoted. He sucks it up, goes out there, becomes a pro, handles it like a man, and wins more often than not. Now Jakub Dobish pops back up on the scene. Like it's Cayden Primeau's show, right? Like he would have to lose the net in the first round for Dobish because when you talk about confidence, I'll be dramatic. Like you're going to ruin this kid if the playoffs start and they're going to go to Dobish.
I don't know.
That's
Like
brutal. That's
the,
brutal
the
if they do
coach,
that.
the coach John Goins and I spoke about this,
Yes.
and my answer was, I honestly have no idea what they would do if the playoffs started, the Canadiens were
Yes.
out, and Dobesh and Primeau were there. I have no idea
Well, it's
what
got to
they
be
would do.
Primo, bro. It's his team. It's not Dobesh's team. It's
Yeah, but it
Primo's
was
team.
Dobesh's team before that, and Dobesh played so well that he got the call up.
Wild.
I
Wild.
also think, with the Canadiens being in the mix, this is another take I have here.
Yeah,
With the
yeah,
Canadiens being in the mix, Marty St. Louis is going to lean on Montembeault more down the stretch, while every game matters a little bit more. Besides maybe the scheduled back-to-back. So then there might be a stretch of 6 games that Montembeault starts in a row. And then
yeah.
they look over at the AHL schedule and see, oh, okay, there's a couple starts there. Dobesh, we want you to go down to Laval and start a game. We'll call
Right.
Primo as a backup, or maybe even Hughes as a backup. Montembeault's going to get the start of Montreal, but Dobesh, you're going to go and start a couple of games. Dobesh goes down, starts a couple of games, is with the guys. He wins those games. Then he goes back to the NHL, and then he'll get a start there when they want to rest Montembeault. I can see a scenario where in the final 20 games, Dobesh plays 4 to 5 with the Canadiens and like 3 or 4 with Laval because they're thinking about the playoffs.
Right.
So if they do that as I imagine it, I think Dobesh is the guy. If they don't do that and Dobesh just is the backup and plays 4 games and sits on the bench behind Montembeault, and on the final day they send him down, I can see your scenario that Primo's the guy.
I mean, it's like I say, it's so tricky. And at the end of the day, you can be emotional. You can be like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I feel for the guy. You and I talk about this. We love it. It's what we do every day. Ken Hughes, Martin St. Louis, Jeff Gordon, MSL. This is their life. They
Yeah.
eat, sleep this 24/7. And, whether you like it or not, you have to agree with this fact. It's a business. And they're in the business of developing and trying to find the next everyday players for the Canadiens. And they're going to have to come to a conclusion that we need to see Jakub Dobeš in massive pressure games at the pro level. And that may mean at the expense of Cayden Primeau playing AHL playoff games. I can understand the business side of that type of decision. So buckle up, friends. It's going to be a great ride. And Shaun Campbell will he'll hold your hand all the way through the AHL season with the Laval Rocket going on a lengthy playoff run. Fingers crossed on all that fun, superstitious stuff. Shaun Campbell, thanks as always, my man. Great stuff. Everybody enjoys your perspective, and it's nice to talk about the AHL and the Canadiens farm team on the come up and looking for bigger and better things. And we'll be listening to you. Call all the action, and of course, enjoying you on TSN 690, 10 to 2 with Mitch Gallo. Shaun, thanks as always for the time.
Thanks. Always love it. Love being in Laval. Get to be there all month of March with all the games. They're home
Yay!
the whole time.
Enjoy Saint Martin, Centropolis, and the beautiful Laval. Thanks, Shaun.
Have a good one.